What's up, sexy? I'm Lexi, and, no. This video deserves the real camera. What's up, sexy? I'm Lexi, and my god, the pin jacket needs replacing. Welcome to the LexiGuide to coming out, as in LGBTQ, not like moving yourself out of a space. I hope you know how to do that. I decided to make this video because it's literally the most asked question of all of my PMs, all the comments, everything. Just people constantly ask, how can I come out to my parents safely? How can I come out to my family safely? How can I come out to my friends? You know, do you have any tips for coming out? And I am happy to provide that answer in the form of an insanely over-edited video, probably. Firstly, however, some disclaimers, because the internet, I don't freaking know. The experience and reference that I had is going to be wildly different from yours. Every single one of you is going to have a slightly different case. That's just what's going to happen when you have nearly 8 billion beanbags on a planet. Secondly, this video will be a lot more free-flowing, and I will probably forget a lot of words or mix them up or something like that. If I accidentally swap two words in a sentence, please don't take that out of context or anything. I'm just trying to sort of get all this out. Thirdly, all of this is from the perspective of a trans lesbian. Every sexual identity and gender orientation on both of these spectrums is going to have wildly different experiences, just due to sometimes the visibility of that specific identity or gender. Somebody who is trans is just going to have a much different experience than somebody that comes out as ace. There's just two totally different things. Sexuality, gender, affects relationships, affects actual medical decisions. That's just how it goes. So now that we've finished the please don't cancel Lexi for anything she says in this video, let's begin to chaos! Or at least more accurate versions of ourselves. Chapter 1. What is coming out? Coming out is revealing your gender identity or sexual orientation to your friends, family, or the general public. We all know what coming out is. PJs, why? Who wrote this script? Oh, you're right, I did. Buy PJs tacos for apology. Right. Chapter 2. When should you come out? Ah, now we're getting into the tricky bits. Being gay isn't a choice, but the timing and circumstances of you coming out are. I was proud of that line. Appreciate it, damn it. There's a lot of factors involved when you're coming out. Like, there's just things that you cannot get around. And this brings us to the first of Lexi's hard truths that sound kind of mean, but she does it because she cares about you a lot. That is not going to fit on a title card. Your health and safety are priority. Toxic family relationships, financial hardships, ostracization, I can't say that word, but you know what I meant. Bullying, toxic or hostile work environments, getting fired or even facing discrimination in areas that you shouldn't are all potential side effects of coming out. Which makes you wonder, if being gay is a choice, why the hell would anyone choose it? Answer me that, internet troll! So all of your decisions about coming out should be from a perspective of self-preservation. Sometimes the only way to maintain self-preservation is to come out, but in a lot of cases, trust me when I say I care about you too much to tell you to just come out regardless of anything. Just be yourself all over everyone, regardless of your personal safety or well-being. All right. First criteria. Are you over 18? If the answer is no, you have a caretaker. You have a legal guardian. If the answer is yes, we'll get back to you in just a second. Hang out, grab a snack, and nod like you're paying attention. If you're under 18, you have a legal guardian that can influence the way, especially for trans people, how medical decisions are made. But also, this can, to a certain effect, affect the flow of information about you coming out, and it can affect who exactly you want to tell. You may not always want to come out to your parents, but you may want to come out to your best friends or your teachers, or have your preferred name and pronouns used at school, but not have your parents know about it. I'm not a legal expert. In some places, this is protected, but if you know your parents are going to react extremely badly to the point where your well-being is threatened, I would advise not coming out at school. All right, so you are under 18 and you want to come out. The first thing you need to do is to look at your caretaker. Sometimes they're wonderful, and that's great. Sometimes they're not so wonderful, and that's bad. And sometimes you're in a household that you know is either currently not safe or could become not safe because of LGBTQ issues. And we know exactly how to solve that issue! But in all seriousness, your safety always comes first. So if you look at your caretakers or your parents or your legal guardians, and they seem okay with LGBTQ people, that's a good thing. That's the very top of everything. You can probably safely come out now, genuinely. Even if you have extended family, and we'll get to that in just a second, you can probably just go ahead and come out, because your legal guardians are going to protect you. They're going to provide you with food, shelter, everything up until the point that you are 18, and you will be okay. Once you're 18, become financially independent as quickly as possible. Always become financially independent. Everything else hinges on that. And then live your gay bi, trans, lesbian, asexual, wonderfully rainbow life ahead of you. Now we're going to move down a category. Your legal guardian or parents aren't necessarily abusive, but they don't really like the whole gay thing. Or my favorite, which is sort of diet toxicity, is I'm fine with gay people, but you can't be gay. Or I'm fine with trans people, but you better not be trans. I'm fine with non-binary people, but you're not really non-binary. These are tricky. In most of these cases, you can kind of test the waters to see exactly how well something would be received. In most of these cases, you will be physically fine, but it will take a big mental drain. It'll be really exhausting. You'll be constantly pressured, or at least feel like you have to prove your identity or sexual orientation or anything like that. And you have to kind of steel yourself going in. So for Group B, we'll call them, y'all can probably come out now-ish, but have some mental shields ready and have a safety net of actually supportive friends. Preferably not people you're already in relationships with, because sometimes the support of another person in a relationship, especially when you're first dating, or if you're still new at dating, their support and friendship, which you will actually need for mental support, can hinge on the status of that relationship. And there's too many factors at that. You want some good, stable, supporting friends or supporting staff members at school. Anyone that you know you can rely on that doesn't have any other sort of conditions or factors or anything like that to provide you support. And hey, some relationships survive just fine. I'm friends with all but one of my exes. Like, it happens. All right, and now to move on to the not most pleasant Group C. Abusive households come in many flavors, and a lot of them look just fine on the outside. And sometimes you might think it's not that bad because everyone else sees only the good side of one or both of your legal guardians that are literally putting you through verbal or physical abuse. Now, nobody is here to gauge anybody's trauma or who had a worse upbringing or anything like that. Everybody's experience is valid. Everybody's pain is valid. There cannot be comparisons made to other people's experience. But in these situations, if you know that physical violence could be instituted, extreme verbal abuse, and I'm talking like not the snide comment that sort of falls into Group B and having a supportive framework, the actually toxic, outright denial of your identity. And there's a gray area between Group C and Group B, where there's you know, parents who probably think they mean well. But for example, a trans man who announces to their dad, "Hi, Dad, I'm now your son." And a year later, Dad's still going, "You're Daddy's little girl." Bitch, no he ain't. That can take a real, actual toll. And that doesn't sound like verbal abuse, because nobody's screaming and no one's calling you names. And no one's calling you worthless or just like flat out denying your existence, but they kind of just gently are. They're like, I recognize that you think this thing, but I still think this thing, and I think that's most important. So if you're in between Group B and C, make your own decisions as to what you think will happen. Can't predict it. But if you are squarely in Group C, you know that there will be abuse, or you will get thrown out, or you will lose any of your basic necessities, or be cut off from all of your social interactions. I do not say this lightly, and I regret that I have to say it, but do not come out. Your first step from here until the day you turn 18 is to become financially independent. And I don't mean that in a Gary V, oh wow, I'm you know, gonna go sell some rare used tissue cloths that I bought for 50 cents. I mean that just like anybody else in the LGBTQ plus community, you have to work twice as hard and be twice as diligent and twice as aggressive about your career, about finding some sort of job. It doesn't have to be permanent, but once you get your own sustainability, flow of money, as long as you can like afford your own groceries and afford your own place to live, or find a bunch of roommates and, you know, form a giant non-binary commune, invite me. The parties would be rocket. As soon as you can do that, do it. Okay, now that I literally just spent a few minutes telling people who came to a video about coming out to not come out, let's move on to the over 18s. Hello, pretend adults, because I know none of you actually feel like adults. Well, some of you probably do, but you shouldn't. Go eat a Lunchable and some Gushers. This video isn't sponsored, but hey, if any fruit snack company wants to sponsor me, I'm right here. Over 18s. First question, are you financially independent? You'd probably gather I was going to ask that. You'll notice my first question wasn't, are your parents or guardians supportive? And you know why that is? Because you are 18. You do not have any legal protections to have a home, to have food, to have anything like that. You can get kicked out at any time. And most families don't have to worry about this, but I'm here for all contingencies, because believe me, it took all hell to get here. I'm literally recording this right now, and I'm not sure if I'm going to share my like entire, childhood story, but it ain't pretty, and I've been estranged from my family for 6.5 years, I think. I've talked to my family like twice in person since I came out. So if you notice the tone of self-sufficiency, you would be correct. So over 18s, if you are already financially independent, or if you are working towards that, which is great. It takes time. The job market is a freaking dumpster fire. 2020 is a dumpster fire. So as long as you have a plan or three, and you're working towards something, anything, momentum and inertia is good. Second thing, if you are over 18 and you already have a job, a recent Supreme Court case kind of established protections for firing LGBTQ people from work, but with the nomination of somebody. I'm not sure how much longer that may be around. It might be around forever, I don't know. But know your state's local laws and know your city's laws as well, because in areas like New York City's laws are actually, or were, more protective than the rest of the state. Use this information wisely, especially when moving jobs or moving or anything like that. Wikipedia has a great page. I'll link it down below. Once you've got your employment and your financial stuff together, you can look at housing. Usually housing discrimination isn't quite as aggressive as far as I've seen. I know it happens, so be aware. It might actually happen. But as long as you have general legal protections, and for trans people, this involves, changing your birth certificate or your ID or passport or stuff like that. That's a whole nother video, because that's trans specific issues, and that's a library. But just make sure that you are protected, and that you're not going to get kicked out of your place because you don't have an actual legal lease or something. You're just like paying somebody, $300 in cash to live in their attic. I don't know. So to summarize, if you are under 18, you have great immediate caretakers, like your legal guardians. Don't worry about your extended family, just your legal guardians. If they are supportive of LGBTQ rights, you can come out today. If you are in Group B and you are under 18, and your caretaker's kind of on the fence, establish a good social network of friends, not people you're in a relationship with, friends. Make sure you have plenty of mental shields in place, and then test the waters and then come out. And usually, these type of parents will most cases, come around. They will actually come around. If you're in Group C, welcome to the club. We got work to do. Start making a plan of how you're going to be financially independent, so that when you do actually get out of a hostile situation like that, you can get into a safe environment that is completely under your own power and your own control. If you're over 18 and not yet financially independent, do so. You don't have to worry about A, B, or C, because these people don't legally have any control over it. If you're over 18 and already financially independent, check your local laws. Make sure that you have legal protection, just in case. You shouldn't need it, we hope. And make sure your housing is in order, as in you have an actual lease or an actual mortgage. As always, not all these situations are applicable to everyone, and this obviously doesn't cover everyone's situation either. So that's what you get for free advice on the internet. Next up, Chapter 3. What are you again? If you're coming out to a group of people, whoever it is, all of this goes to everyone. Like, we've moved outside of the whole family thing. Not everyone is going to have poured over all the gender identities and sexual orientations to find the one that describes them the most. Most people are going to know gay and lesbian. Bisexual is pretty easy to figure out from there. Trans, you're gonna go down a little. You're gonna get a lot of people that just immediately think of Dr. Frankenfurter. Queer will take explaining, and from there it's just going to get very fuzzy for everyone who hasn't been exposed to even the idea that sex and gender are spectrum, and there's lots of little points that you can identify with along the way, or none at all. So remember to educate, push people a little bit, but expect people to mess up, be gracious where there is no intent, and focus on gentle correcting and not picking your battles, but sort of knowing what you're dealing. For instance, I am technically a transfeminine demisexual lesbian. I grew up on pretty much the border between Florida and Georgia. We have some good fried food, but we ain't got the least idea about LGBT people. LBGT. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Trans lesbian is already going to be a paragraph of explanation. Demisexual is a lost cause, and trans feminine is going to have to explain that gender is a spectrum. So basically, manage your expectations going in, not to change your identity or invalidate yourself in any way, because you are freaking perfectly valid. Just know that some people, it's not that they have harsh intent, they just aren't experiencing what you are, as well as just don't know, that same world. And eventually, they might come around. They may not. They may be really misguided and just, do their best. So I guess what I'm saying is, never give up, never let other people's perception of your identity define you, and don't let your identity define you either. You are not a lesbian person, you are a person who happens to be lesbian, who has many other talents, including lesbians. Yes, lesbian is a talent now. Woo! For trans people specifically, learn to recognize we're gonna get misgendered a lot. That doesn't mean you should work to be correctly gendered as much as possible, but separating the intent, like the people that are intentionally being like he or trans women, from the people that genuinely slip up, like people at work that misgender me on the phone because they've never seen me and I have a fairly deep voice. I'm not gonna go after them. I'm not gonna get mad at them. I'm not gonna get mad at a store clerk that I'm probably never going to see again, or even bother correcting them, honestly. This doesn't invalidate your gender, and if you feel like correcting them and you feel like you've got the mental energy to do it, go for it. But remember, you only have a certain number of spoons to give. And once you start separating out the intentional versus the unintentional misgender, it's so good for your mental health. And it gives you so much resilience to actually fight the people that are really gonna come after you for being like, oh, well, you can't be trans, it's scientifically impossible. I am a scientific abomination. Again, all of this is just my perspective. These are the things I've done and that I've used to keep myself sane, to keep myself moving, and to sort of build confidence in myself. They're not gonna work for everyone, but the more you pay attention to you, your mental health, and the way you navigate the world, the less other people's reaction to you coming out is important. And at the end of the day, you coming out should be a gateway to you being your best and most awesome self. You coming out as non-binary is an awesome and excellent first step, but once you've settled into being out as non-binary and you wear that badge with pride, you got more to accomplish. You got awesome stuff to go create or awesome things to go invent. The first non-binary person to do XYZ, to invent quadruple tacos or double cheese. Like, just seriously, just like cheese, but double. Confidence is essential for all of this stuff. So once you're confident with you and how you identify and how you present yourself, everything else just becomes so much easier. And eventually you stop worrying about what other people think. Your friends, your true friends, your family, your true family, which is not always the family you're born with. Sometimes you have to make your own family. Your work colleagues, everyone else, you'll find out very quickly who truly respects you and yeet everybody else into the sun. Labels help us cliff notes each other. They're useful for a very quick description, but all of them eventually become somewhat inaccurate because not everybody fits into these neat little boxes that labels create. So while finding some labels that fit you and provide a very quick description to somebody else, especially people that aren't that familiar with all of the genders and sexualities represented in the LGBTQIA community, they will never be 100% accurate, and that is perfectly okay. Being proud of a label and presenting as it and identifying with it is important. It can be important for many people. Just remember that you aren't that label. Don't tie yourself too hard to that label, because if somebody accidentally misgenders you or something like that, that will feel very much like a personal attack and drain you of mental resources that you need for other more important things, like eating fruit snacks. You know you are trans, you know you are non-binary, you know you are gay, and nobody can take that away from you, no matter how much the YouTube comment section tries. When you do come out, this is speaking as a perspective from a trans person, but I've seen this before with some other people. Don't rush to prove your identity to anyone. If you say you are trans, you are trans. If you say you're non-binary or asexual, you're asexual. You should feel zero pressure to immediately present as the gender you want. If you need to take your time to feel comfortable, it's a big change for some. It can be a really big change. Take that time, do things at your own speed. If you just came out as gay and you identify as a man, don't immediately try to find a boyfriend, especially if like they're a toxic person or just the relationship doesn't work. Don't immediately just try to get into a relationship for the sake of being like, hey, I am gay, look at my boyfriend. That's not fair to you, that's not fair to the other person, and it doesn't help validate your identity in any real way. Idiots might come along and be like, oh, well, you're bisexual, but you identify as female, and you're dating a man. That makes you not bisexual. Those people can sleep in the center of the sun, and I'll send them there myself. And that brings us to the end of a very short, very summarized, very general LexiGuide to coming out. Everyone's situation is going to be vastly different. Remember to put your mental health, your well-being, and your safety first, because your goal is to have a long and awesome freaking life. And coming out on your own terms, it's a huge part of that. The more factors you can control over your life, the better. You'll notice I didn't touch on my own coming out story a lot in this. I came out to my birth parents over the phone. Our relationship was already kind of in that group C category. It was not a very good one. Long story for another time, but my basic entire strategy was, I'm lesbian trans, goodbye! I actually remember my birth mother's first response to that was, I don't think that's going to work. I think you're too tall. Because cisgender 5'11" women don't exist, apparently, despite the fact that one of my IRL friends is 5'11". Me coming out as trans was kind of the final nail in the coffin for what was already barely a relationship. So all my perspectives put you first and make sure that you are fully independent and have as much control as possible over your life so that you can, go forth and make awesome stuff. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I will do what I can to answer this. I might make a part 2 out of this if I see a lot of recurring themes or a lot of recurring questions. I might do a video of like answering specific or recurring situations, because obviously there are many involving nuclear family and extended family and close friends and job stuff and housing stuff and transportation and trans issues. A whole gay world. But yeah, until next time, my name is TheLexikitty, but y'all can call me Lexi. Have an absolutely victorious day tomorrow. Stay safe, stay awesome, make more stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for another dose of wholesome chaos. A special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, Twitch subscribers, and everyone who watches the YouTube ads. And remember, have an absolutely victorious day tomorrow, and I'll see you guys in the next one.